it doesn't really leave much of a lasting impression. And I think for me, the biggest issue was the emotional beats weren't really there for me. Like, you get to meet some amazing characters, you get to kind of creep into their lives a little bit, but it's so quick and sometimes so just effortless that you kind of just move away from it, and it doesn't last too long.
It's everything that we've seen before in so many other sports projects and sports films and shows. They're just like, we've seen this, we've done this. And it's not to say that it's bad or it doesn't work in this movie. It just feels very safe. Hello and welcome to the movie podcast at TIFF. My name is Daniel. I am one of your hosts today, and joining literally right beside me is my fellow coach, Shahbaz. Hello, Shahbaz.
I feel like we're sports commentators right now.
We are, because we're both wearing sports hats.
Yes.
We're a fan of sportswear.
Yeah.
And the beautiful game of football.
Yeah. And we're like both like commentating with each other. We're like, look at this, look at the score, look at the goals.
It's a big move, Con. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Let's see if it pays off.
I love that you're doing, like, you're making your voice sound like it's on a commentary.
Well, thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
Welcome to the movie podcast. Well, folks, we got a big show for you ahead, so make sure you tune in for it. Of course, we are at TIFF. It is 2023, and there are lots of films to be watched. And there are a lot of films that we've watched already that we have reviews out. So if you've been watching along, if you've been listening along, no matter where you're following the show, be it on YouTube, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're in person. You know, sometimes we do shows in person, impromptu.
Yeah, I think anytime we're around people, you're getting a live show for free.
That's exactly it. I mean, you're getting this episode for free too.
Are they though?
Well,
they paid with their lives.
They paid with their lives and their time. So we thank you for that. We've been having a lot of fun at TIFF. There's been a lot of great things going on, and there's so much more coming your way. So make sure you tune in for all of that and more. Of course, the movie we are talking about today is Next Goal Wins. It is directed by Taika Waititi, who you'll know from a lot of films like Hunt for the Wilder People, from Thor Ragnarok, from Thor Love and Thunder, from Jojo Rabbit. He has a huge filmography. We are fans of him. We weren't too big on Love and Thunder last year.
Oh, no. No.
But let's see how we did this year. But before we get to all of that, I do want to say that this movie review is brought to you by our good friends at MUBI. So stay tuned later in the show so you could get a whole month free of incredible cinema from around the world for free. Now, if you want to keep track of all what we're talking about today, be it our socials, be it how to get this month free of MUBI, check out our show notes below, whether you're on YouTube or on the podcast feed. Everything you need to know is there. And we really want to make sure you're following us on our socials because there's some really cool stuff happening this week. You don't want to miss any of it. So there's lots of cool stuff coming. Now, this film is being released by Searchlight Pictures. It will be releasing later this year in November, on November 17th in theaters. So you'll be able to check it out then. But let's get right into it. Shahbaz, give us your first reaction to Next Goal Wins.
Next Goal Wins it's a lot of fun. It's very cheerful. There's so much heart. There's so much love that's put into this film. And you can tell that every single person in this movie feels like a family. They feel like they're having a lot of fun. They're really enjoying what they're getting to do. That being said, there is also a lot of this film that kind of just feels like it can become a bit forgettable. It's definitely a crowd pleaser. I think people are definitely going to have a great time with it. I think it's going to win a lot of audiences over when it comes to the fall movie season during Thanksgiving and everything that's kind of coming out of that time. I think that's going to go really well for this movie. But where I kind of struggle with this film is it doesn't really leave much of a lasting impression. And I think for me, the biggest issue was the emotional beats weren't really there for me. Like, you get to meet some amazing characters, you get to kind of creep into their lives a little bit, but it's so quick and sometimes so just effortless that you kind of just move away from it, and it doesn't last too long.
Yeah, and I mean, like, let's look at the presence, the premise of this film. You have a team, American Samoa, who suffered the biggest defeat in World Cup qualifier history, losing 31-0 to Australia. So the whole premise of this film is that they bring in a coach from the outside worlds. You have Michael Fassbender coming in, who is now going to be like their coach, who's going to coach them and hopefully get them to at least score a goal during the qualifying match to go to the World Cup. So it's very much a premise that we've seen a million times before in shows like Ted Lasso, obviously The Mighty Ducks, Cool Runnings, even Big Shot. This is another Disney
Right.
show with John Stamos being the disgraced coach coming back to work with a team he doesn't want to. Like there's these cliches that we've kind of seen, or not
There's
even
no
just cliches.
shortage. There's no shortage of movies like this.
Exactly. There's a lot of films that kind of touch upon this, or you've seen this play out on different shows and things like that across the board. So there's a sense of familiarity to this film that's 100% true. But you do have a huge cast here, and you have obviously Michael Fassbender, you have Elisabeth Moss and Will Arnett, who I feel like are really, really just thrown in here without any real purpose to their roles. And anytime they show up on screen, you're just like, okay, like we feel like we're just padding time right now. There's not a lot to their performances. So I'm curious, how did you find their performances in the film? Was that just me, or were you also feeling that?
I think Will Arnett is absolutely hilarious, and the two real scenes he's kind of in this movie I thought were really funny, but you could completely take those moments out and you have the same film. Literally nothing changes. Elisabeth Moss also kind of doesn't bring anything to the film either. There's this whole not love story really, but this whole story of Michael Fassbender and her being his ex-wife that really should hit a lot harder than it is, because the movie really doesn't focus on it. And I get why there's a lot of things that it wants to try to tackle, but because it's tackling a lot of things so half-heartedly, side tackling them so half-heartedly, you never really care about what's happening. You just care about getting to that goal.
Right. And that's the thing, right? Like you want that moment where they hopefully eventually score this goal to have a big payoff. What I did really love about this film, though, is the cast. There is an incredible cast of characters that really I wish got more time to shine, because we're getting, we got a lot of, a couple of the characters, but there's a really big team here that I feel deserves a spotlight. And I think there's so many interesting stories that are being told that, we don't get enough time to really develop it or see those stories through.
I think Oscar Knightley, who plays Tavita, the head of the FFAA or FFSAA, I think to me he stole every single scene that he was in. He was absolutely hilarious. There's this level of dry sense of comedy that Taika really likes to write and direct that Tavita really nails, and it just brings it out. And I think when he's paired with Fassbender as well, they butt heads comedically so much that it just really, really worked. I like Fassbender a lot. Like I love him.
Let's talk about him.
I couldn't read him really well in this movie because I couldn't tell. Like it felt like in the beginning of this film, he's like, I don't want to do this, and the next scene, he's kind of like, I'm here, so I'm going to do a really good job or something. Like it just, I don't know. I never felt the struggle or kind of figuring out like, does he want to do this? Like it didn't feel like it was there.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too, where, he kind of gets this after no team wants to take him. He's like, you know what? Like the board, which is, Will Arnett and Elisabeth Moss, who like Elisabeth Moss and Michael Fassbender used to be together, but now Elisabeth Moss is with Will Arnett, and for some reason they're the heads of the board, so that causes the drama there. And for some reason, they're also the reason why he gets sent to American Samoa, and so he doesn't have a choice. He has to go. That's his job there. And yeah, like you were saying, Shay, there's moments where you feel like he is taking it seriously. There's moments where it's like he doesn't, and he wants to quit. And it's like those moments where we're just so accustomed to seeing in sports films, where it's like, okay, things are going really well right now. The teams are getting it. We're getting a bunch of montages showing that they're training, showing that they're learning to work together. And then when a game happens, obviously they're getting their butts kicked, and then they'll have like the pep talk in the locker room, and you'll have that moment where he wants to quit again. Then he's going to get an offer to do something else and then stay. And it's like, it's everything that we've seen before in so many other sports projects and sports films and shows. They're just like, we've seen this, we've done this. And it's not to say that it's bad or it doesn't work in this movie. It just feels very safe. And when you're looking at someone with Taika Waititi's filmography, where he's done films like Jojo Rabbit or Hunt for the Wilder People or Boy versus Wolf, right? He's done so many incredible films, and that's not even including obviously Thor Ragnarok, which we were big fans of. So it just feels like this is a very, very safe entry to his catalog of films that, yes, it's filled with his humor. Yes, he gets moments where he comes in and does his classic Taika Waititi isms that we've seen a lot. And it's funny because this movie also opens up with him as his character in the film telling the story of what's going on. I'm like, oh, you started your last movie the exact same way with
Yeah.
Love and Thunder. Started with Korg telling the story of this legend that happened, and and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
like it just feels like we're kind of going in circles a little bit. And I think this is what I struggled with a lot in X Gold Wins. Yes, it's a fun time, it's a fun, safe time, but I feel like every scene felt like a variation where it's just like, okay, Fassbender doesn't want to be there. He learned something about the team. He continues on. Next scene, he doesn't want to be there. Learn something new about a team member. Then he's like, okay, we're going to continue on. I do want to like shout out. I think this movie does some really cool things with showing the story of a team member on American Samoa who is transgender and what their story brought to not only to Jaya, sorry, not only what they did for the sport and how they are now a FIFA ambassador and all of that, but I think it's really important. I think Jaya's the one who gets the majority of the development in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
and it's great to see that. And I wish that the rest of the teammates on this national team were given the same amount of time to really develop their stories, because there's so many funny characters, there's so many like unique dynamics between all of them. And I think when you look at the American Samoan culture, this movie does a great job of showing that, but it's also just like, man, I want to know more. I want to develop more and like know more about who these characters are and what they are. Because when you have a team of 11 people on each side, it's like you have a lot there. And I feel like Michael Fassbender was just kind of given like the same kind of one note.
Yeah.
Not to saying he was one note in the film, but just felt like he was just doing the same. He was the same character in every scene. Like he wasn't ever evolving or changing. And I feel like it's only in those moments of those montages you're seeing some of the character moments, but you're in a montage. You're not getting a lot of development out of that.
A lot of this movie kind of felt like a highlight reel where you're just kind of getting those moments and then they kind of brush past them. So emotionally, you don't connect as much to this movie as you'd want to. And when the movie when it's trying to rely on the emotions, it becomes very difficult.
Right.
Again, I love what we were seeing in the film. And I still feel like within the time constraints of this movie, you want to make an hour 30-minute movie, hour 40-minute movie. I still feel you can make the same film, but really focus on the characters. There's a lot of stuff that you can cut out that's trying to really like pad up the timing or really push the story forward. There's a lot of stuff that you really see coming from a mile away that when they finally reveal it, you're like, yeah, I think we all knew that was going to happen.
We know.
Why did you take so long to build this up?
Right.
The other movies I tell you that you were talking about were A Boy.
Yeah.
And What We Do in the Shadows, which I absolutely love that movie.
Oh, phenomenal what was the other one? There's Eagle versus Shark Boy.
Yeah.
No, Eagle versus Shark,
no
and
boy.
then Boy.
No Boy.
Boy's a separate movie.
Shark Boy and Lava Girl.
Eagle versus
he didn't
Shark.
do that one.
He did not do that one. Yeah, that's I was
Girl.
like, I know there's Eagle and Shark and Boy. There's just two different movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like Taika's a very interesting director, and I think his style. We've been very accustomed to what he's been doing for the last 10 years. I think where he's had a lot more of his mainstream success, or at least with Ragnarok, I think was his real big pop, his big pop, and his big breakthrough. But yeah, I was a little disappointed with Will Arnett and Elisabeth Moss. Not that they were necessarily bad in the film; they're not. They're great actors. They're great performers on their own. But in this film, when you only have like 2 or 3 scenes with them, it just feels like anytime they were there, it was to remind us that like, oh, we're trying to develop
develop Fassbender.
Fassbender, where like he's not really one who needs much development. He's there to be there for the team. And when you look at obviously what Ted Lasso did, again, a show over 3 seasons long, the show started off about him and then it became about the team. It was never about him. It was about the team.
I think you could do this movie, keep Fassbender's character a mystery. He gets sent to American Samoa. He's not happy with it. He's struggling, yada, yada, yada. You get to the end, and then that big reveal that we were seeing coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
When that moment happens, that's the moment where we're like, oh, okay, you break the shell of that character. I think that's what you needed. You honestly can cut out Elisabeth Moss and Will Arnett, and it makes the film a little better, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think that's when you're relying on those moments where, and I think Taika does this a lot, where it's like a lot of drama, and then it's like undercut by a joke, and like, and I get like it works well sometimes. At other times, you're just like, okay, we know as an audience, we see it coming a mile away, right? And I think when you're relying on a lot of those classic tropes, and I think this film suffers a lot of those tropes that we've seen a million times in sitcoms and movies and shows, where it's just like, okay, we we get it, we know, and when you have it all in the span of an hour and a half or an hour and 40 minutes, what this movie was, I kind of left it like, you know what, I enjoyed what I saw. Is there much of a lasting impression, like you were mentioning, Shahbaz? I don't know if there's much of a lasting impression or much that I'll be thinking about this film after we're done talking about it today. But the audience that we were with was a TIFF audience. They loved it. They were cheering and applauding, and yeah, there were moments where it definitely deserves it, and it's really emotional or fun or just like really funny. So like our audience really enjoyed it too. So I'm curious to see how it does with like the TIFF People's Choice Award. We'll see if it's going to nail it this year, or because Taika won the last one with Jojo Rabbit. I can see
Boy in the Heron getting it too.
I can see Boy in the Heron getting as well too. I'm sure we'll talk all about that. But any other final thoughts on Next Goal Wins before we wrap it up for today?
No, I think it might have sounded like we were being really negative on the film, and it's
no,
not that.
I don't think we were being negative.
No, I think you said you hated it.
I said that I, as a Portuguese man, I will never, touch a soccer ball again.
Yes, which is weird. Anyways, no, I just want to say, like, it's a fun movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It just doesn't leave a lasting impression.
Yeah, just like the movie podcast, which I heard that.
Who told you that?
Well, it was Anthony, who's not here today too.
His goal never wins.
His goal never. No. But let us know what you think. If you're watching this at TIFF, if you're seeing it anywhere else, if somehow you saw this movie already.
You pirated it.
I know. Let us know. Let us know. Write a comment below. Let us know if you're looking forward to it. Let us know your favorite Taika Waititi film, because I think he has such an interesting filmography and we'd love to discuss it more. Of course, if you want to discuss things more with us, we have an incredible Discord community that you could join. Check out our show notes below, because then you can also follow us on socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Letterboxd, wherever you are on a social media platform. The MUBI Podcast is there. We're having a great conversation right now. Before we continue, I do want to thank our friends over at MUBI.
This episode of the MUBI Podcast is brought to you by MUBI, a global curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe.
From iconic directors to emerging auteurs, there is always something new to discover. Some recent MUBI releases include Park Chan-wook's Decision to Leave, Leia Mesias's The Five Devils, and Lars von Trier's The Kingdom Trilogy.
With MUBI, each and every film is hand-selected. It's like your own personal film festival, streaming anytime, anywhere.
And speaking of festivals, the Toronto International Film Festival is happening right now, and there's a world of cinema in Toronto. And the only other place that you could get a world of cinema at your fingertips is on MUBI.
Picture this, you and your closest friends in a screen loaded with hand-picked cinematic gems, all courtesy of MUBI.
Are you bored of the same old movies available every single streaming service? MUBI is the place where you're going to get something that you've never heard of before, and it may just be your next favorite film. You can try MUBI free for 30 days at mubi.com/themoviepodcast. That's mubi.com/themoviepodcast for a whole month of great cinema for free.
But that is all we got for you today. That was This Time with the MUBI Podcast, and we'll see you next.